Just moments ago, Sophie Cunningham broke her silence, and what she spilled about the Indiana Fever locker room should have every Caitlyn Clark fan out there seriously worried. Sophie Cunningham goes in the post-game press conference and confirms what we've all known all along. We've kind of wavered a little bit on that. We have our own islands. This locker room is split, and she uses the term different islands going on in this locker room. Sophie literally says there's a little thing going on in the locker room that's not good. That's not good to hear. We're talking fractured bonds, zero protection for their star, and a team basically tearing itself apart from the inside. Caitlyn's battles clearly aren't just against defenders on the court. She's out there fighting all alone. There's one really concerning that Sophie Cunningham said, I think, that we've kind of wavered a little bit on, that we have our own island. It's been a disaster. The good teams can keep the locker room together. If you're still riding for Caitlyn Clark, you know she deserves so much more than this mess. Comment down below. Defend Caitlyn Clark, because after hearing Sophie's raw honesty, it's obvious this team is in shambles and nobody's stepping up to guard their generational talent. Caitlyn Clark is the star player of the WNBA, the most popular woman ever in the WNBA. Caitlyn Clark. Caitlyn Clark is the needle. Caitlyn is boxed off. Caitlyn Clark is the star. Everything else is wrapped around her, and everything else is revolving around her. She's Rookie of the Year in the WNBA. For weeks, fans could sense something was off with this Fever squad, but now Sophie has ripped the bandage off. She confirmed what everyone was quietly suspecting. The locker room is splintered and is drifting apart at precisely the moment Caitlyn needs unity the most. In her post-game press conference, Sophie didn't sugarcoat it. She came right out and said, Sophie Cunningham in the post-game interview speaks on this team in the islands within the locker. We have our own islands. That phrase landed like a live grenade. I think that we've kind of wavered a little bit on that. We have our own island. It wasn't just about misplays or blown assignments. It was about a locker room full of disconnected players, no sense of solidarity, and a glaring lack of leadership. Everybody's on their own little island on a team built around a once-in-a-lifetime player like Caitlyn Clark. That's a flashing neon red alert for every fan paying attention. Take care of our locker room. You did a job at that. Sophie admitted the squad is shaky and that they're failing to lean on one another when it matters. Translation, Caitlyn's not just taking cheap shots from defenders. She's not even being lifted up by her own teammates when she's getting battered. Caitlyn Clark plasters over all the cracks. She realistically plasters over all the cracks of this team. This team is not structured well. The very crew that's supposed to rally around her can't even pull it together. Last season, at least they had each other's backs. Even in defeat, there was unity, but now Sophie flat out says it's different. Even when they were losing games, it seemed like the locker room was in a good spot. So now Sophie's basically waving a giant warning flag. And this isn't coming from some clueless rookie. This is a seasoned vet. She even took accountability, saying she needs to do more to pull the team together. But let's be real, that doesn't patch up the fractures that are already gaping wide open, Sophie Cunningham. I'm coming out there and effectively saying there's a big difference between her saying there are locker room issues and her saying the locker room maybe isn't where it needs to be. Caitlyn Clark's stuck in a locker room that's not built to protect you emotionally, mentally, or physically, and that breakdown it's spilling onto the court for the whole world to see it is not looking positive for them to be fixed. We can be honest here. It's not looking positive in games where Caitlyn gets rocked. Where's her backup? You don't see teammates rushing in to send a message. Instead, they crumble in crunch time. Sophie even called it out. They scored 35 points on us in one quarter. They scored 35 points. I think you guys said that just cannot happen. That's a team lacking discipline, concentration, and trust. This isn't just about dropping a couple games, it's about an entire culture falling apart. The Indiana Fever are in a disastrous situation right now. They're in an absolutely disastrous situation when your superstar is being left to fend for herself. You're not dealing with a typical team problem anymore. It's a full-blown crisis. If it's not minor, then again, like I'm getting very close to just writing off the seat. Sophie Cunningham's blunt comments about players living on different islands didn't just pop out of thin air. They're the direct fallout from months of chaos, questionable roster moves, and a front office that seems clueless about how to protect the one player who actually matters, Caitlyn Clark. And a ton of this drama traces straight back to Dana Bonner and Natasha Howard. Let's get one thing clear. Bonner wasn't brought in as just another roster piece. Whose idea was it to bring these old dinosaurs and put them on this roster? Starting with Dana Bonner, she was handed a max contract by the Fever in the offseason. Still one of the strangest moves fans and analysts have seen. Sure, Bonner had experience, but she came with plenty of baggage. And for all her veteran clout, the immediate impact was tension, not leadership. Some insiders are even hinting that her abrupt exit wasn't only about her awful shooting, it was about salvaging whatever team unity was left. One of the fractures was a Dana Bonner group off to the side. One analyst flat out questioned, did the Fever finally decide they needed her out to keep the locker room from completely fracturing? When Bonner was suddenly cut loose, the entire WNBA was stunned. But looking back now, it's pretty obvious she might have been the wedge, driving players apart exactly when Caitlyn was trying desperately to hold things together. Then there's Natasha Howard, who might be an even bigger puzzle and a bigger liability. Fans and content creators alike have ripped into her for her lack of urgency, iffy effort, and bizarre off-sea court antics in a recent game. She literally showed more concern for an opponent's well-being than her own teammates. Tasha Howard decides that she'd rather rub up on Easy Magnabor's leg. Even when Caitlyn Clark got sent sprawling after a hard foul, Natasha just stood by stone-faced, showing zero reaction. Zero protection, absolutely nothing. Anytime Caitlyn Clark's been knocked to the ground, anytime Malia Boston's been punked, anytime Lexi Hull has been beat up, Sophie Cunningham's been beat, any more concerned about somebody on the other team than from her own team. Meanwhile, she's quick to check on rival players, but barely lifts an eyebrow when Caitlyn gets decked or Aaliyah gets hammered or Sophie gets smacked around. It's not just awkward, it's downright humiliating. And still, despite all that, Howard keeps raking in major minutes, while players like Sophie Cunningham, who actually give a damn, get left watching from the bench even worse. Fans are convinced this loyalty to Howard is pure politics, stemming from Stephanie White, the head coach who coached Howard back in Indiana years ago. It's not about who earns it, it's about who knows who. And that's where you really start to see the damage by clinging to vets who aren't bought in and shoving out players who were the Fever torched their own chemistry. Now, the locker room is splintered into literal camps. One analyst even laid it out on a graphic. Caitlyn, Lexi Hull, and Sophie over here on one island. Natasha Colson and Turner huddled together on another. Sydney Colson is on class clown. Allen, she's the jokester. She got Stephanie White and Aaliyah Boston doing some dumbass TikTok dance. Meanwhile, players like Aaliyah and Dantas are stuck somewhere in no man's land, not even sure which side to stand with. Ferris Dantas is on an island as well. I just want to play ball. Island is even unsettling chatter that this has turned into something uglier. Whispers about a locker room race war, the rock and the hard place island, rock and the hard place island. They know what it takes to win. Now, they catch themselves in the middle of this weird locker room race war inside the Indiana Fever locker room. Players are now stuck juggling loyalty to their team with outside social pressures, and it's tearing them apart. One analyst even put it bluntly, they want to play for Caitlyn, but something else is pulling them back, and it's got nothing to do with basketball. When that kind of internal split effers, it doesn't just pop up in tabloid stories, it wrecks entire seasons. Think back to last year's Fever team. Sure, they lost games, but they did it together. They still had heart, they still had a bond. That bond is nowhere to be found. This season, with no Erica Wheeler or Tammy Febb-Bentley, veterans who were like glue last year, the Fever have nobody to step up and keep that locker room in check. Instead, the front office loaded up on big-name players and social media darlings, and what did it get them? Repeated fourth-quarter meltdowns, Caitlyn getting battered game after game, and a leader like Sophie literally pleading on live TV for her teammates to wake up and stick together. Many different islands going on in this locker room, but the saddest part, this was all supposed to be different. Caitlyn Clark was meant to flip the entire script. The Fever landed a once-in-a-generation star, someone who could have made Indiana a title threat and transformed the franchise from top to bottom. They should have built around her with speed, shooting, and hungry young players. Instead, what did they give her? Drama, clashing, egos, aging vets who can't run with her, and a locker room that doesn't even seem to have her back. So when Sophie says they've wavered, let's decode that. What she really means is we let Caitlyn down, we opened the door to the wrong people, and now we're paying for it. And unless something changes drastically, this isn't just going to cost the Fever a playoff push. It could cost them the trust Caitlyn once placed in this team. Take care of our locker room. You did a job at that. No one likes us, right? So everyone in our locker room is the only type of people that we have that we can lean on. And we got to be better in that area. We have got to stay disciplined. We have to stay focused. We need to get consistent, and we got to lean on each other. And I think that we've kind of wavered a little bit on that. We have our own islands, but one of the leaders on the team, I got to do a better job of people. Let's be brutally real. Caitlyn Clark didn't come to Indiana to babysit dysfunction. She was supposed to be the spark that reignited the Fever into contenders. What she got instead is total chaos, a franchise with no clear blueprint, a locker room cracking under pressure, and a front office more worried about covering their own bad decisions than protecting their superstar. And it's painfully obvious. Everyone sees it. Everyone knows it. Rewind to last year when Indiana picked Caitlyn first overall. It wasn't just for her highlight reel plays. It was because she brought something nobody else could hope. She's the most watched women's player ever. The bright face of a new WNBA era. WNBA rumors suggest Caitlyn Clark will be among the first stars making $1 million annually, the most notable of which is, you already know who, the needle mover, Caitlyn Clark. So in 2024, she averaged 16, 5 points per game, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. She shot 37% from the field and 8% from three. Now, if you look at her preseason in 2025, she only played 2 games in this preseason, and one was against that Brazilian national team. She played 21 minutes. She averaged 5.6 assists, 6 rebounds. She shot 52, 5% from the field and 50% from three-point range. That was Indiana's golden ticket to revive not only their own brand, but to lift the entire league. So what did they build around her? A clunky system, a divided locker room, and teammates who literally stand still as she's being hacked to the ground. Stephanie White is, in fact, trying to turn the Indiana Fever into last year's Connecticut Sun. Let's be crystal clear, this lack of protection is more than just figurative. It's physical. Game after game this season, Caitlyn Clark has absorbed brutal hits, elbows, and blindsides, and every time while fans lose their minds and cameras catch the carnage, her own teammates just stare. Nobody steps in, nobody checks the refs, nobody makes it clear you can't keep doing this to their star. An analyst even highlighted